It is July 8th, and on Today in Murder, we go over the case of Laron Williams, a Tennessee serial killer and prison escapee. Much of Williams' early life is actually a mystery. During an interview on death row, he said that he was born somewhere outside of the United States in 1949. No exact date can be found. We know he was the second of 6 children of a father serving in the military. Laron claimed that he saw little of his father when he was a child as he was serving in Korea. Laron claimed that he entered high school in a town called Newardton before moving to California. This is probably a fake location, as no record of such place existing in the state have ever been found. The guy was a pathological liar. He claims he finished high school in California and then supposedly spent a year and a half in college studying psychology. But once again, he refused to disclose the exact location, and it can't be verified. During the 1970s, he's said to have drifted around various parts of the country before settling in Chicago, Illinois. In early October 1977, Laron Williams went to stay at a friend's apartment in Nashville, Tennessee. On October 18th, he solicited the services of a 19-year-old prostitute. Her name was Tara Wedlaw, who had just moved to the city just 2 months earlier from Tampa, Florida. The pair went to a hotel to have sex, but after they had finished, Laron had strangled her and fled the premises. Just a few weeks later, he was arrested on a murder charge by local authorities after the woman's birth certificate was found in his possession. While he awaited his trial, it was publicly announced that Laron was a suspect in 2 other murders that had occurred in Nashville. These murders Laron is accused of are the strangulation of prostitute Mary Jo Korn and a bank teller, Bessie Wallace. Both women were found nude and strangled in areas near the city, their hands and feet tied with rope, and each was killed within months of one another. As the killings were similar to that of Wedlaw, authorities suspected that Laron was their killer, and he was also under investigation for other similar murders in such places as Atlanta, Columbus, Portland, and Chicago. Although publicly the police accused Laron of these crimes, ultimately he was only convicted of the Tara Wedlaw murder. Laron Williams received 10 years imprisonment, and with a chance of parole serving at least 4 years of a sentence. Once in prison, Laron was constantly involved in physical altercations. He managed to get into a work release program to learn trades, specifically electrical. After just a short period of time, he was removed from the program due to his violent outbursts and behavior. After just about a year in prison, Laron had enough. On April 22, 1981, he jumped over the facility's fence and fled into the city of Memphis. It's in Memphis where he remained under the radar for nearly a month until July 12th, when he was approached by 53-year-old police officer Lieutenant Clarence P. Cox. When Clarence Cox realized who Laron was, he attempted to arrest him. Laron resisted, and in the ensuing scuffle, he managed to snatch the lieutenant's gun from his holster and shot him in the head, killing him on the spot and fleeing the scene. After Cox's body was found on the next day, state's authorities made a priority to capture the dangerous fugitive. Just 2 days later, Laron went to Jackson, Tennessee, a city north of Memphis. It's here he burgled a church, the St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church specifically. This is where he shot a 35-year-old assistant pastor, Reverend John J. Jackson. Once again, Laron Williams evaded capture. That is until just 3 days later he was finally captured by authorities at the restaurant next to the motel where he was staying in. Following his arrest, Laron was separately charged with first-degree murder relating to the deaths of Officer Cox and Reverend Jackson. Each of these charges carried a possible death sentence. Laron was found guilty in both trials and sentenced to death via electric chair. His initial execution dates were set for March 15th and July 14th of that year. Like many death penalty cases, the execution was delayed by appeal. Have you ever heard of prison justice? Well, while the justice system was preparing for the execution of Laron Williams, karma decided to step into the equation. On July 8, 1985, during an exercise period at the Tennessee State Prison, which is now abandoned and reportedly the most haunted place in Tennessee, Laron Williams was attacked by a group of fellow death row inmates. These inmates proceeded to beat him with their fists and exercise weights. While the fight was quickly broken up, Laron was heavily injured and had to be driven to a nearby hospital. It was here that he succumbed to his injuries. Prison justice won on this day. In the aftermath of the incident, prison authorities determined that the inmate's motive was the fact that Laron had been spending too much time on the phone, which angered them. 2 inmates, Cecil Johnson and Tony Bobo, were convicted of voluntary manslaughter for killing Williams. Both of them received an 8-year sentence. Both inmates were already awaiting execution, as they were all on death row. Laron Williams was dead, and his victims finally received justice. I'm your host, Dawson Toller, and on Today in Murder, that was the case of Laron Williams.